All right, hello everyone. Today we are going to be creating a sunflower inspired by Vincent van Gogh. Now I have here some examples of sunflowers. They're not real, but they are made to look real. And the reason I wanted to show these to you is you can see that there are lots of different types of sunflowers. Some grow really, really big, and others actually grow kind of small and look more like a bush of flowers versus the tall ones that usually just have one big flower on a huge stem that's taller than you. The thing to notice here is they have slightly different colors on their petals, but for the most part, you're gonna see the warm colors on the petals. You're gonna see your yellows, your golds, your oranges, your reds. The center of the sunflower can also look a little different, especially depending on what time of year it is. If it hasn't grown seeds yet, you're gonna see more of like a brownish color. You might also see a lot of yellow in the middle. And then as it grows seeds, it changes and looks a little bit different. So when we create our sunflower today, we have two challenges. One, we want our colors to look realistic. And two, for each area of the flower, we want to try and use at least two colors. You could even use 3 or 4. But we want to challenge ourselves to do more than one. So when we get started, we are going to be using chalk. I like to work on a dark paper, and the goal is to make it square because since we're just drawing the head of the sunflower, it fits a little bit better on a square paper. If you don't have a square paper, you can make one simply just by folding part of the paper underneath or cutting it off. If you want to use a longer paper, that's fine too. Now, when you get started, we're going to be drawing the center first, and we're going to be starting with a circle, and we're going to be using chalk. But we're not going to be using chalk as is. We're going to be using chalk that we get wet, because when you get chalk wet, it actually acts a little bit more like paint, and it goes on thicker and it's less dusty. So you're going to want a cup with a little bit of water in it as well. You only need maybe about that much water in the bottom, just enough to get the tip wet. Now on this one, you can see there is actually a little bit of water still there, but for the most part it's dry. You can tell when it's wet because you can see it. So you'll have to pay attention because it will continually dry out and you will need to get more water occasionally. So I'm going to start with a circle that's bigger than my fist and go slow so that I get a nice circle shape. Okay, that's my first job. And then I want to fill in the middle. And there's different ways you can do that. I'll show you a couple of examples here that I've done. In this one, I just did the whole middle with some different browns and a little bit of black and white to kind of show the seeds. In this one, I did it where it's more like this flower here. It's more of that brownish color on the outside with the pollen in the center. So that's up to you. I'm going to start with the color I have here, and I'm doing short little lines, and they're kind of traveling around the edge of the circle to help keep that round shape. And I'm going to do this all the same. So I'm going to add that brown all the way towards the middle with my curvy lines. And now I'm going to add in a second color, something probably close to this. So maybe I'll just use a different brown, because my chalk that I'm using, my sidewalk chalk, has a few different browns. If you're using drawing chalk, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be sidewalk chalk. I'm just showing you with this because that's what I have on hand. Yeah, all chalk should be working pretty much the same way when you get it wet. All right, so there's my second brown added in. Now I can stop there if I want, or I can keep going and add something else in. Maybe I'll add in this kind of tan color. Add some of that in. So I'm just doing the same thing each time, adding short little curved lines all the way around. And let's see, it's still wet, so I'm still good. All right, there we go. Okay, so there's the center of my sunflower. Now, you may notice little bits of chalk occasionally. You can always kind of shake those off the paper if they get in the way. We're not going to do any blending though. We're going to leave it like this so that we can see the individual colors. So now I'm going to start on the petals. I think for mine, I'm going to do mostly orange colored petals. You can see in this one, I used a light orange and yellow. In this one, I actually did red, orange, and yellow. I did all of them. I think for this one, I'm going to do mostly orange. So I'm going to draw with this lighter orange here. So I'm going to get that wet. And I'm going to draw pointy petals. They should be pointy to be a sunflower. So you'll notice each time I start at the circle and I draw the line out, and then I move over and I connect them. I think that gives it a better tip than if I came out and then came back in. So I always start at the center of the sunflower. I also find it helpful to rotate my paper as I draw so that I'm always drawing directly in front of myself, because if I'm reaching across, I could smear the middle of my sunflower accidentally. So I want to keep rotating the paper as I go, making sure I'm holding mostly with fingertips here and trying not to hold it where I already have drawn, because then again it might smear. All right, so now I have the petals all the way around, and you'll see it's darker when it's wet, it's lighter when it's dry. So as it dries, you'll be able to tell because it'll get lighter. I'm going to use this same color mostly near the tips here. I'm going to add in some short little lines of color closer to the tips, and I'm going to do that all the way around. And again, I'm going to rotate the paper so that the part that I'm working on is in front of me. And then I'm going to be using a different orange with this. So once I'm done with this one, I'm going to go back with a darker orange now. So this is a darker orange here. I'm going to get this one wet, and I'm going to add some of that in. I'm going to do the whole petal with this one. And then I'm going to add a little bit more kind of reddish color towards the center of the sunflower. Alright, so as I finish up with this one, it's starting to get a little bit dry. I'm going to add a little bit more water to it. That helps kind of mix the colors as I go over top of them as well. Alright, so now I'm done with that one. So then I am going to come back with one more. I'm going to use this one. It's okay that it's broken. It should still work just fine. So I get the edge of that wet, and I'm going to do kind of a shorter line that's just near the center of the flower. So I'm not doing any of this color near the tips. I'm starting to get a little bit far away from myself, so I'm going to rotate that paper again. Now, after you have finished your petals, you're going to work on the background, because right now you can see I've got little fingertip marks everywhere. It looks kind of messy. We're going to add in just a sky color. Let me make sure I don't see any major black spaces left. There's a little bit here near the tip that I might go back and fix just a little bit. All right, so now I'm ready to do the background. So I'm going to do some cool colors because everything in my sunflower is very warm. So some purples, some blues. You can even add some greens in there. In this one, I did blue and purple. Same thing in this one. The blue and the purple are not exactly the same, but I used blue and purple. So this time I'm going to go ahead and do a green because I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to start with my green, get the tip wet, and I'm going to draw lines going from between the petals out towards the edge of my paper. I'm going to do that all the way around. I'm going to try my best not to put any lines on the petals. This part is important that we don't let the colors of the petals and the background blend, because then they'll make usually some sort of brownish grayish color, and then it'll be really hard to see the edges of my flower. So after I do one color all the way around, then I'm going to go back with the second one. And you could do even more than two colors. Maybe you want to do all the cool colors, so you want green and blue and purple, and you can do that. Just be careful when you're adding colors. Pay attention to where you're putting them, and always go from here towards the edge, because if you work from the edge in, a lot of times you'll end up drawing the line over your petals, and you also might end up kind of grabbing the edge of the paper and it could potentially rip, so you want to be careful with that. Alright, so then now that I'm done with the green, I'm going to go, I think I like this kind of turquoise blue, so I'm going to use that one to kind of finish that up. Just like Van Gogh, always using more than one color in a space. And then once that's done, I want to make sure it's dry, but it is chalk. It can come off the paper. So there is a way that we can kind of help keep it on the paper when we're finished, and that is using something called a fixative. That basically fixes it in place. At home, you probably don't have like an art fixative, but you have hairspray. Hopefully someone at home does, and hairspray actually works for this. So when you're done with your picture, you want to actually spray it with hairspray to kind of hold all the chalk in place, to fix it in place so that it doesn't end up coming off later. All right, so I'm almost done here, but you guys, I would love to see your pictures when you're finished, so feel free to share these on the Padlet after you've created them. All right, I hope you have a good time, and I'll see you later.